The other thing is just as nerve-wracking, but for the opposite reason. That's right, Susie is pregnant. We decided to try right after Ray's first set of treatments. The man loves babies, and Susie is an only child. And now that his future is a little less certain, we pushed up the schedule, as it were. Aside from being scared about the whole parenting thing and the money thing and everything else, we're feeling pretty good. Actually, I'm pretty good because morning sickness is a very dainty way to describe daily waves of crushing nausea. They were worse in the morning, of course, but any time of day was a time of day for morning sickness. And after some experimentation, we figured out what Susie could eat and when she could eat it as well. There have been no fabled cravings, but certain smells are oddly sickening, like coffee and pizza. We have no idea why. The church is delirious, of course. No pastor has had a child here in 30 years. And I think half the stuff they've given us comes from that same baby, judging by the age of it. Who knew babies needed so much stuff even before they arrive? Being our first, we were clueless about the social world of pregnancy. For example, what do you say when folks ask, "How are you doing?" Well, Susie found the perfect answer. Tremendous. Susie hopes to work through the 8th month, though, leaving at the winter break. But now we're dealing with backaches, which are constant. She sometimes asks me to come up and hold the baby, which means to stand right behind her and lace my fingers just under her belly and lift up ever so slightly. She says it really works, so potential dads take note. In between the news about Ray and the news about the baby, we tapped our trees again, and this time I actually got some syrup out of it. This time I was smart. I took my sap to a real sugaring house. It's actually his sauna during the rest of the year, but steam is steam, and with his help, I managed to draw off about a half a gallon. That should last us for a while because actually maple syrup is not something we like all that very much. We had a May snowstorm this year, which covered the tulips. May storms are short but heavy, and the flowers were crushed, and so were we. All that moisture, though, did help the mosquitoes to an early start, so I had learned how to patch all the screen doors really early. I have discovered that lilacs can be cut back, but they can never actually be killed. Last summer I hacked and dug and pulled up roots that ran for yards under the grass. They are lovely in bloom, I know, but for the rest of the summer they just grow and sprawl and loiter. But despite all my efforts to chase these hoodlums from alongside the barn, they sprout up in the middle of the lawn instead. Also annoying is the bamboo, which someone planted as an ornamental years ago and now chokes out anything nearby. Rhubarb is a volunteer as well, but as it is the mother of rhubarb pie, I am better disposed toward it. We do have a barn, yes, you heard me right, and the remains of a stable. It is built in the old post and beam style, meaning those large timbers that form a skeleton joined by mortises and tenons and fastened with pegs. The biggest members are showing long cracks, but I'm told this is no danger. The vestiges of stalls are still there for when horses actually lived in here. They look like half cells for monks with half walls side to side, and in each one is a little lath basket for holding hay, what we usually call mangers. All those years growing up, I had an image of the mother and child in the stable that was kind of like Disney, rustic but charming and warm and bright, suitable for dwarves. My barn and its mangers are mangy, though. Slits of lit light come through the clapboards and the wind, too. It's cold and drafty, and without the 3 or 4 light bulbs hanging in the middle, there would be no light there at all. Methinks this is more akin to the ancient stable than the ones in the movies, probably actually better than those. If I recollect my biblical history course, stables were often built in caves or under rock overhangs because wood was too precious to use for mere walls and roofs. Rough shelter indeed. We do have poor people in this town whose houses are not much better than this barn. They essentially live in stables. I visit a couple of them. They belong to my church. They always have animals too, so it always ends up smelling like a stable. They hang blankets in doorways to muffle the wind, and the wood stoves they use give off a harsh heat that never quite fills the room. I find it hard to stay long, but at this time of year it is a little easier because Joseph and Mary would have known a place like this. They were kind of like the migrant workers who come in this area in summer to pick tobacco down in the valley and only stay here for a while, as Joseph and Mary stayed in Bethlehem a little while and then go off to some Egypt before going back to their Nazareth. You know, we think we're not like them, because we have nice houses and reliable heat and good power. But then it dawned on me that even we who have nice homes that do have lots of heat and lots of light, we're all migrants too. Our purchase on this planet is not long. No one is a permanent resident after all. As we walk to our date with birth, the fabled couple seem quite real to us this year. Like them, we have no clear sense of what lies ahead for us or for our new family. We live in hope, which is all any of us really ever do. In the midst of all the merriment, I wish you a moment when you see the stable and manger that's around you as well, with its sagging timbers and drafty walls. This, believe it or not, is where hope is born. Rejoice. I'm going to read a wonderful piece of poetry from W.H. Auden at the very end of a piece called For the Time Being, a Christmas oratorio. It was written during the Second World War, so it has a shadow across it, and it's meant to. What you might not know is that he wrote this while he was a visiting scholar in Ann Arbor. And he apparently spent at least a few days here in Grand Rapids at the Pantland Hotel. So maybe he thought up these words right then. Who knows? I hope you enjoyed the false life of the false couple. And who knows, if you really did like them, they might come back again next year. Well, so that's that. Now we must dismantle the tree, putting decorations back into their cardboard boxes, some have gotten broken, and carry them up into the attic. The holly and the mistletoe must be taken down and burnt, and the children got ready for school. These are enough leftovers to do, warmed up for the rest of the week. Not that we have much appetite, having drunk such a lot, stayed up so late, and attempted quite unsuccessfully to love all of our relatives, and in general grossly overestimated our powers. Once again, as in previous years, we have seen the actual vision and failed to do more than entertain it as an agreeable possibility. Once again, we have sent him away, begging, though, to remain his disobedient servant, the promising child who cannot keep his word for long. The Christmas feast is already a fading memory, and already the mind begins to be vaguely aware of an unpleasant whiff of apprehension at the thought of Lent and Good Friday, which cannot, after all, now be very far off. But for the time being, here we all are, back in the moderate Aristotelian city of Darning in the 815, where Euclid's geometry and Newton's mechanics would account for our experience, and the kitchen table exists because I scrub it. It seems to have shrunk during the holidays. The streets are much narrower than we remembered. We had forgotten the office was as depressing as this. To those who have seen the child, however dimly, however incredulously, the time being is, in a sense, the most trying time of all. For the innocent children who whispered so excitedly outside the locked door where they knew the presents to be grew up when it opened. Now, recollecting that moment, we can repress the joy, but not the guilt that remains conscious. Remembering the stable where for once in our lives everything became a you and nothing was an it. And craving the sensation, but ignoring the cause. We look round for something, no matter what, to inhibit our self-reflection. And the obvious thing for that purpose would be some great suffering. So once we have met the Son, we are tempted ever after to pray to the Father, lead us not into temptation and evil for our sake. They will come all right. Don't worry, probably in a form we do not expect, and certainly with a force more dreadful than we can imagine. In the meantime, there are bills to be paid, machines to keep in repair, irregular verbs to learn, the time being to redeem from insignificance. The happy morning is over, the night of agony still to come. The time is noon, when the spirit must practice its scales of rejoicing without even a hostile audience, and the soul endure a silence that is neither for nor against her faith, that God's will be done, that in spite of her prayers, God will cheat no one, not even the world, of its triumph.